this week's marketing training side of Get Booked Out, we have over 100 new faces in this group, which is really, really exciting. As I wait for some people to trickle in here, apologies for kind of the mix up on the time. Of course, this replay will be available in the group if you're unable to make it live right now. But if you are one of those new faces in this group, welcome. Thank you for being here. I created this group because I saw that therapists needed modern marketing help. That is what this group is all about. It's why I do the type of work that I do. I bring actually a career of marketing to the therapy world. So I'm a little bit an outsider's perspective on this whole thing. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for being here. I spent my career in marketing and am a product of good therapy, but am not actually a practitioner myself. That meant that I had to do a lot of learning and researching and talking and, oh man, so much reading about what it means to be a private practitioner. I've talked to hundreds of practitioners. I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of practitioner websites, and I've really been able to develop this strategy and this approach to marketing for private practitioners that uses all of the best practices from outside of the therapy world and all of the marketing strategies I learned in my career, all tailored to you and to you connecting with clients and ultimately being able to get booked out doing what you love. Because I believe that you should make a comfortable, profitable living and feel fulfilled in the work that you do in a way that's authentic to you and in a way that gives you the fulfillment that you're looking for and ultimately the reason you got into this line of work to begin with. So that's my intro. I'm Anna. Really, really happy to have you here in the group. I've talked to a lot of new faces in the welcome post. If you haven't yet introduced yourself, please head over there and do that. But like I said, today we're talking about networking, and this was something I asked the group, what would you like to see us talk about this week in the marketing training? And this was the overwhelming response. Everyone put it a little bit differently, but basically wanted to know, how can I be reaching out to people in my network with all the change that's happened? I can't just walk into, a school or, and connect with a teacher there. I can't go into a dentist office. I can't walk into a gym or a yoga studio. What do I do to continue networking and let people know that I'm there? And a month ago, when we were just at the beginning of this, I probably would have said, hey, just sit tight, like focus on making sure that you're investing in your own practice. But I think as we are starting to see things open back up and as we're kind of moving into a new phase of this new normal, that it's actually really important that you do be thinking about this and doing this in a really strategic way. The reason for that is because experts agree kind of across the board that there's going to be a huge uptick in the demand for therapy services coming out of gone through this collective experience. There's been a lot of challenge. Mental health, unfortunately, has not been prioritized as much as we might hope, but we know that need is going to be there. And so there are going to be people need to refer their clients, their patients, their contacts to people like you. And so it's important that you're forming those relationships, cultivating those relationships, but doing it in the right way, right? Because some things have changed, right? When it comes to what it means practice. And so we want to talk about what those nuances are. But it's also important to realize that while some things have changed, some things haven't. Number one of the things that haven't changed, the things that you need to keep in mind still when it comes to networking is, one, you must be easy to talk about. What do I mean by that? This is why, niching and things like that are really, really important. You have to be easy to talk about for these other people. These people are going to go out and describe you to potential clients. Can they do that easily? Have you yourself talked about yourself in a clear way? I have a video where I talk about creating your practice messages. I think it's about 7 or 8 months old, but it is rock solid when it comes to learning how to talk about yourself as a practice. If that's something you'd like to be tagged in, just drop a yes or a thumbs up in the comments, and after this video, I'll make sure you're tagged there. But the reason we talk about practice messages is because it's really important that you know how to talk about your value, right? You have to be confident and be able to articulate, I serve these types of people, I do these types of things, and they see these kinds of results. I help them get to this type of life, right? So you need to be easy to talk about. If you were to call up your mom right now and say, hey, mom, what do I do? What kind of therapist am I? She should hopefully, or someone close to you should be able to tell you what that is, right? And if they can't, that's an indication to you that you need to do some clarifying so that you're not burdening these potential referral sources with trying to figure out how to describe you, right? You should be so easy to talk about that it's like, oh yeah, Anna, she is the best grief counselor when it comes to, women in later stage of life. She just really gets it. Oh, okay, great. Then anytime I'm talking to someone later stage in life that's walking through grief, we know that Anna's your girl. Make sure that you're easy to talk about. The other thing that hasn't changed when it comes to networking, and this is a quote from Jo Muirhead. If you're not familiar with her, she's actually a networking specialist in the kind of mental health world. So look up her name, but she has a really, really great quote, and it is that the therapeutic economy is built on trust. Other economies are built on money. The therapeutic economy is built on trust. And that means that any networking relationship that you have has to be focused, has to be absolutely centered around trust. You must still approach your marketing this way. It cannot be a transaction. It can't be putting giving someone your business card and expecting them to send a client your way. This is about relationship. This is about understanding who you're connecting to and who they then connect to, which is hopefully your client, right? Which leads me to the last thing that hasn't changed, then we'll get into some ideas for how to network moving forward, is that your ideal client must overlap with these networking sources, right? So I want you to think about kind of a Venn diagram or circles or overlap. So what you do, what your network or contact does, and what your client needs, all three of those things need overlap. The very center of that Venn diagram is what's going to indicate to you whether or not a referral source is worth kind of investing your time and energy into. If you work with kids and do play therapy for kids with anxiety, you probably don't need to be networking with attorneys, right? Ideal clients aren't the same. So just make sure that you're investing your time in a way that's smart, and also that you have a relevant connection point with these people because you serve the same type of person. So I hope that makes sense. Let me make sure we don't have any comments here. Awesome, we got some yes. Great, I see some yeses. I will make sure that you guys are tagged in this after this. Tracy said, I realize how and why marketing is so important. It seems like it's exhausting right now. How do you spell Jo's name? Let me reply to that real quick just so you can see her last name. There you go. Jo Muirhead. Okay, so now what do we do? So we agree that those three things are true. Now, in order to network right now, especially, you must understand where this person themselves are, right? So you think about a physician, you think about an attorney, you think about a pastor, you think about a dentist, whatever. This is a person, first and foremost. Yes, they do that thing for their job, but they're a person, and that means that they have their own stresses, they have their own fears, they have their own concerns. Think of you yourself as a therapist. Yes, you operate a private practice, but you yourself are stressed about being able to get enough clients. You yourself are stressed that you had yet another no-show and don't know whether to charge your cancellation fee. And you're having all of these internal personal stresses that manifest in the business, but you're a human first, and so is this person. So as I was thinking about how to go into this training, I thought about it in 3 different buckets, and I encourage you to do this as well. And it's interesting we even have to talk about this now, but we do. So essential businesses, non-essential businesses, and then I call them creative contacts. So let's start with essential businesses. These are people that have been open. These are people that are stressed to the max. These are people that have been working. Yes, they have had to pivot online. If you think about a physician, if you work with young women, an OBGYN might be a really good person to network with. Maybe your own OBGYN you have a relationship with and want to form a networking sort of, kind of build and create this networking relationship. They have been open. So what kind of position are they themselves in? If you put yourself in the mind, if you put yourself in, in the shoes of your OBGYN, she's had to pivot to being online just like you have, so you can connect there. She's stressed. Her team is stressed. Her patients are stressed, right? So those are kind of some big things, some big sort of hallmarks right now about that person. Okay, great. How could you help? What would you say to her? What would you say to her team? What would you say to her patients that could help? She's had to pivot to doing services online. Could you offer a resource about what you've learned about doing, therapy online? Maybe you've been doing online therapy for 6 months now, and you know that a certain type of chair will make or break it, right? What sort of connection point, what sort of value could you bring to this person? But you have to, in order to know that, you have to know where they are. Then we have non-essential businesses. These are attorneys. These are dentists or, kind of other sort of specialty physicians, maybe a plastic surgeon or something like that, gym owners, yoga studio owners, pastors, maybe even other therapists. So maybe they've been working, but not in the same way. Maybe they haven't been working and they're stressed about opening their doors back up. So where are they? They've had to pivot to online. Churches are going online. Gym owners are having to all of a sudden create virtual workouts. Attorneys are serving their clients online and having to connect with their team that way. They themselves are also unsure about the future, especially if they own a traditional business. How do I keep my clients after this? Similar to you, right? They're needing to find clients, they're needing to keep their income up, and they're needing to be valuable to their community the same way that you are. I know I sound like a broken record, but this season of your practice is about two things. It's about being visible and it's about being valuable. And these people are in the same position. They're needing to be out there on social media showing people that they care for them and that that they have helpful resources. So what could you do for that person? Maybe you could provide them with a couple social media posts that they could go ahead and just turn around and post to their Instagram and create some helpful resources for their people. Maybe, you send over some tips about what it means to do services online, whatever that is. And I have some ideas kind of later in the training about specific niches and how you might want to network, but ask yourself, what kind of position is this person in and how can I meet that need? So those are our non-essential contacts. And then what I call your creative contacts. And this is something that isn't a maybe traditional networking. When you think of networking, it's going into a physician's office and giving them your business card. But there are people out there that aren't necessarily, owning a business that is directly going to refer to you, that can be your advocates. Who are the advocates in your life? This is where I want you to be a little bit creative because you have the best relationships with these people. Is your best friend a dental hygienist? Maybe your mom's a secretary in a school, or maybe you, went to high school with the pastor of a church or something like that. Think of the people inside of your personal network that also have connections to your ideal client. And it's a balance here because we don't want to be, right, this isn't transactional. We're not reaching out to these people and saying, hey, can you refer clients to me? We're reaching out and saying, hey, if your best friend's a dental hygienist, hey, I know you're about to head back to work next week or 2 weeks from now, some dentists are starting to open up. I know that you probably all feel a little bit stressed. So I actually created this 5-minute video on mindfulness for if you're feeling really anxious at work or something like that, because she's probably going back to work a little bit scared, right? It's a different world that she's operating in. She's having to wear PPE every day, extra PPE every day. Think about the people in your life that are advocates for your business, that are advocates for your practice, and that ultimately have access to the people that you would like to talk to. How can you lean on existing relationships where people already believe in you and want to see you be successful? And what can you do to offer them value, right? One thing that I really want to highlight here is that in this season, want to lean on existing relationships. It's interesting what we've seen kind of sociologically when it comes to like the psychology of people in the midst of this pandemic. We are all a little bit more distant from one another physically and otherwise, and a little bit more resistant to new relationships, right? It's harder to get to know someone this way. It's going to be harder to book a Zoom call with a dentist. But can you call up your existing dentist, or can you, when you go in for your next cleaning, mention something or something like that? Lean on your existing relationships. Talk to your own doctors. Talk to your own, your own attorney or whatever that is. If you have an existing network, talk to those people. This is not a great time for establishing new relationships, but it is fertile soil for cultivating existing ones. And that is because you're going out there and you're being valuable, right? So let's talk about some creative ideas on what you could be doing. Let me make sure we don't have any comments here. No, my comments aren't loading. Hopefully not. I'll pull it up in a different video before we close out so I make sure I answer any questions. But all right, so let's talk about some ideas. How can you help with where they are today? That's the question that I want you to be asking. What are they struggling with? What are they stressed about? And what would I do, right? One thing I really want to note that's just kind of an overarching truth is that when it comes to connecting with people, video is powerful. If you are comfortable hopping on Zoom by yourself and recording yourself doing a 5-minute breathing exercise, that is going to be really, really powerful, extremely shareable for you on your own social media channels, but also shareable with people to share with others. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create resources and ideas and connection points that are shareable. And video is powerful that way. It's especially powerful, of course, for a therapist because face-to-face is so critical. So the sooner someone can see your face, form a relationship with you in this way, the sooner you can ultimately, the easier it will be, for them to ultimately decide, hey, I actually really like her. I will, just as an aside, I do strategy sessions with therapists very often, and very often I will get on a Zoom call with them and talk to them, and just over the course of them telling about their practice, I can get a sense of what it means to be in therapy with them. Discount the idea of video because you can come across, right? That is what you're strong at. You're strong at connecting with people. So don't be afraid of video. Don't shy away from it. Facet of your marketing, especially in this time. So that's kind of my video side. Anyway, okay, let's say you're a couples therapist and you want to connect with an attorney. What would be something helpful you could send? You could send a printable PDF. You could attach it to an email, reach out to him, let them know that you're thinking about them. You know that this has been hard and that their clients may be struggling, a divorce attorney or family attorney or something like that. Maybe a PDF about navigating conflict or co-parenting in quarantine, something that if he's hearing from a client that is in the midst of a separation, what would be helpful for them, right? Create some of these scenarios in your head and think about what you can do to help them. If a client came to you and said, I am struggling so much when it comes to co-parenting my son during the separation, what would you say? Package up what you would say and provide it over to that person. Provide free value. Why does that matter to that attorney? Because it means that if that attorney turns around and emails that to his client's gonna be like, my attorney is the best. He sent me this really helpful PDF, and then they're gonna open it up. They're gonna get these tips. Your name and your email is gonna be at the bottom, and you're gonna be like, oh, maybe, wow, that could be a really great thing for us. Maybe that's something we should look into, right? This is where I want you to start getting creative. So maybe you're a play therapist or you're a social worker, which means that you often like to network with principals or teachers or people in schools. Creating something that is engaging for a child would be huge here. So again, I talked about a video. How about you do a video training for kids? A quick breathing exercise for kids that's 3 to 5 minutes long that could be shared with parents who are struggling, right? This could be, maybe you do a resource for parents about how to support their child when they're missing their friends or they're having an outburst if you work with kids with behavioral disorders or something like that. What do the kids and the parents need right now that you could help with? What do these teachers need right now that you could help with? Ask yourself these questions and be creative. Creative things. And you're gonna have to use some of those creative juices to really make yourself set apart. And instead of just sending an email and saying, hey, I'm offering online sessions. If you have anyone to send to me, please do. That's not gonna work, right? But if you send a really short, engaging video with a nice, friendly email or a beautifully designed PDF or something like that, you're going to stand out visually. You're gonna stand out in a way that just other therapists may not be doing right now. So maybe you're a depression or anxiety therapist and one of your contacts is, physicians, just a traditional physician that's like my patient's struggling with mental health. I really think that they should see someone. Focus on maybe looking at this a different way. Maybe focus on supporting that doctor's team. What are his front desk people and his assistants and his, CNAs and nurses worried about? Send a few tips about managing stress, that's focused on frontline workers. All of a sudden you're establishing a relationship, not just with this physician, but with his team. All of a sudden they know who you are and they're willing to talk about you and maybe even come see you themselves. Then focus on supporting their patients. What do their patients need right now? They're stressed to the max. They're you, right? But not feeling well during this pandemic. So maybe something about how to manage stress and uncertainty and anxiety in a state of uncertainty, whatever that is, right? Think about how you can meet the needs of the people that they are interacting with. That is what this is all about. Maybe other therapists, occupational therapists, people that are a little bit more closely related to the work that you do. I think that providing over a couple shareable social media graphics would be awesome because these people are also needing to be out there getting new clients or being in front of existing ones and just being visible and being valuable. What better way to expand your visibility and your awareness than some social media graphics and some, or a blog post or two that they could immediately turn around and share. Just like you're like what do I post on social media today? So are they. What if you can help them with that? All of a sudden, wow, yeah, Anna provided over some social media graphics, some Instagram graphics, or this really great blog post that I was able to repost, and it gave me something to post yesterday when I was just completely brain dead. Oh my gosh, so valuable. And again, we're increasing your awareness. That's what this is all about. So friends, these are some ideas that I want you to think about when it comes to networking in the world. There is no cut and dry answer here. We are in unprecedented territory. And so there's going to have to be some kind of a spirit of experimentation. But the fact is that I talk about this all the time in this group, you as a therapist are already a good marketer. You are great relationally. You know how to connect with people, to empathize with them, to make them feel heard and seen and validated. And networking is about helping one degree away, one contact feel seen, heard, and validated so that they're more apt to tell other people and expand your awareness over and over and over through all of these circles. That is what networking is all about. It's why it's so powerful. I hope that these ideas were helpful for you. Let me make sure, pull up the stream here on another tab to make sure I didn't miss any questions here. Let's see. It's free for them to help. Awesome. We got some yeses. I'll make sure that you guys all get this. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. I apologize if one was missed. I will go through and review these just to double check after this. But friends, as you go out and cultivate these existing relationships with people, or if you want to go ahead and reach out to someone new, maybe there's someone in your community that you admire that you've been meaning to connect with, sure, use this as a connection point, but go in there expecting nothing in return. Go in there just wanting to be valuable and resource and be empathetic, and don't expect anything in return. I've talked a lot. I talked about this, in the group, in my emails recently, in trainings. Right now, this season is an investment in your business. So view this as an investment in a relationship. Are you going to see a return tomorrow? Are they going to have someone to send your way this week? Maybe, maybe not. But even if they don't, you are making yourself memorable, you are making yourself visible, and you are making yourself valuable. And that is what this season is about. So friends, thank you for being here. I am really, really grateful to get to do this type of work, to have these types of conversations. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll make sure that all of you are tagged in that training I talked about practice messages, and we will talk next week.